Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 5 of the Amanda Natanda Show. I'm Amanda, and thank you guys for watching. This season will have a totally different vibe as we go topical, and we'll be focused on cherishing the men in every aspect, from their mental health to their emotional and social well being, which will eventually unpack my journey in the last 2 years towards the end of the season. So don't miss any episode for you to understand my journey with the help of my phenomenal guests who will shed light through their journeys as well, which will eventually make sense towards the end of the season. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest today. Tony Friday is the founder and director of the Global Institute of Emotional Health and Wellness, and he is also a certified happiness coach. He survived 2 suicide attempts, which led to his passion for creating safe spaces for mental and emotional healing. By sharing his own experiences, Tony speaks to hundreds of people across different platforms each year, helping them to deal with depression, suicide, anxiety, and addiction. Welcome, Tony Friday! Sir, I still have the energy. I haven't slept, and I know you're just waking up because of the time difference, but thank you so much for coming on to Tough Love. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for coming in onto the Amanda Nakonda show. Jeez, I have so many shows I can't even keep up anymore. But it's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the Amanda Nakonda show.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. So you already know that the season is actually focused on cherishing the men. And one of the issues that men struggle with is talking about their mental health. And today we are going to be focusing on men's mental health as you share your story with us so as to encourage other men who struggle with making their mental health a priority due to the stigma associated with the men just being vulnerable, especially in our Black community. So,
Mhm.
do you mind sharing your story and then we'll move from there?
So
Or will
my,
Tony
my wake
Friday
up
do that? Because that would actually give a brief background onto the story.
so my wake up call kind of came in 2011. Um, I had I'd been on radio in Malawi for like 3 years, and then I moved down to SA with my family. Um, but on the marriage front, like things were not working out well. And then eventually in 2010, around December 2010, we decided to go our separate ways, and then we did that. But then what happened after is something that I didn't anticipate. It's something that I, I found myself in a situation where I struggled to cope. I couldn't deal. I struggled to work.
Mhm.
I struggled to wake up in the morning. I struggled to eat. I struggled to sleep. You know, I was angry. I was bitter. I was anxious all the time, and I was what I now understand to be severely depressed. Um, but of course, I didn't know about this word back then.
Mhm.
I just knew that I wasn't fine at all.
Mhm.
So for a couple of months, I tried to, push it anyway, like, go to work, do the normal things. But ish, yeah, it was a struggle. I remember getting a couple of warning letters from work because I couldn't perform. I would get to work and then just lock myself in my little office. And I couldn't get any work done because I wasn't okay. I was in this really dark place. I was
Mhm.
in this place of hopelessness. I didn't see anything good about life. I tried to do the things that I usually enjoy doing. They didn't excite me anymore.
Mhm.
I sank deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I remember this one time. I was walking from the office to where I used to get my transport, and I got mugged.
Mm.
So when I got mugged, it was these two guys. They used a screwdriver, and I didn't have much on me, so they just pulled out a screwdriver, and this is like right in the middle of the day, like around 4
Wow.
p.m. So, and they took my wallet, and I think I had about 120 rand, and that was it. But then something strange happened after the incident because I found myself wishing they had killed me.
Mm.
Now, this was this was interesting because I mean I'm not a person who wanted to die, but in this moment I really felt like, you know what, this could have easily ended my misery, the misery that I was going through.
Mm.
So from that day, I started toying around with the idea of taking my own life, because of the extreme pain that I was in.
Mm.
And looking back now, I realized death wasn't the goal. Like I did not want to die. Dying is not the thing that I wanted to do. It
Mm.
was the pain that I
The
was
pain
going
that
through
you wanted to escape from.
that I wanted to escape from.
Mm.
And bear in mind, at this point, I knew nothing about mental health. I wasn't even aware there's a word like mental health.
Mm.
I just knew that I was perpetually unhappy and I was in extreme emotional pain. With physical pain, it's better because you can take medication, you can go to the clinic and get help. But with emotional pain, what do you do? Because it's something that's happening inside you,
Mm.
in your head,
Mm.
in your body, and you can't escape from it. So
Mm.
all day, every day, you have to live with this pain. And it gets to a point where you are so overwhelmed to a point where you can't take it anymore and you just want rest.
Mm.
You want that good feeling and you want to rest.
Mm.
You want to escape this pain that you're consistently feeling. So
Mhm.
that's how the idea of taking my own life was birthed. And I started thinking about it. I became obsessed with it. I even remember going online and looking up how to do it properly.
Mm.
And then one afternoon on a Saturday in March, March 2011, I used to share a flat, like an apartment with these two guys from Pakistani, but they had no idea what was going on. They just thought
Mm.
I was a very private person who didn't want to talk to people
Mm.
because I was always locked up in my room and I would be locked up if I wasn't working, I would be locked up in my room pretty much the whole time. I didn't cook much. I didn't eat much. I slept a lot.
Mm.
I also struggled to sleep a lot, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Mm.
On this one Saturday afternoon, I decided, you know what, today is the day that I end it all. I took
The
some pills because I had been sick for a while. Like I had all kinds of sicknesses. So I had a cabinet full of all kinds of medication. And I took a bunch of them and I sat on my bed. I even imagined my funeral. I even imagined what it would be like. I wondered who would
wow.
cry, who wouldn't cry, um, were people going to miss me and all of that. And then I eventually popped the pills, took them in, and the hope was that if I did that, I would wake up on the other side. Uh, but that didn't happen. I woke up around 2 a.m. the next day on the Sunday, and I was sick.
Mm.
And the thing that I managed to do was call up one of my friends who came, and I actually lied to him that I had taken the wrong medication, but we went to the clinic and then eventually got help. But the thoughts of going didn't stop because I was still in so much pain and I wanted out of the pain. So eventually I tried it again after a few weeks. Still didn't work. I tried to do more pills. I figured more pills, more toxic, but nah, it didn't quite work like that. And
Wow.
called the same person, and then eventually he kind of figured out what was going on. So I then had to open up to him. He
Mm.
knew I'd gone through the divorce, and
Mm.
he knew because we used to go to church together.
Mm.
But he didn't have the final details of what exactly I was going through. And then eventually he asked me to go see one of the pastors at church, and then that was the first time that I spoke to another human being about what I was going through.
Mhm.
We spoke about it, and the more I talked about it, strangely enough, he didn't give me a solution. But the more I talked about it, the less that I toyed around with the idea of dying, So,
And even just the burden of your
yeah, you
shoulders.
know what I'm saying? Like, it
Yeah.
was strange because this talking thing was strange because it wasn't something that I was used to.
Yeah.
And um, so, yeah, we started to talk a bit more. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't go to a therapist or anything because I couldn't even afford it at the time,
Mm,
which is the other thing that we need to talk about at a later
mm,
point. But I started reading books. I started, listening to podcasts. I became obsessed with material to do with mental health.
mm,
And my healing was kind of something that I did by myself. Like I didn't go to a therapist.
mm,
I didn't go to speak to anyone about it. It's something that I kind of walked into by myself. And this is the message that I always push to people because I believe that, especially in Zimbabwe, where number one, it's a stigmatized subject, right? And
mm,
men do not talk naturally. And then thirdly, there's such a huge shortage of professionals, and it's damn expensive. Like you can't
mm.
afford. I mean,
Unaffordable. Yeah.
a simple consultation to a psychiatrist will cost you anything between 70 to 120 US dollars.
Mm,
And this is in a nation of people who are earning an average of about $100 a month. Like, it's impossible.
yeah.
So, shortage of mental health care, highly stigmatized subject, and it's expensive to get help. So I always advocate for solutions that do not involve any of the three. Solutions that involve you and another human being, which is simply having conversations about mental health, and
Mm,
just being able to talk about issues and just being able to sit down and um, open up about the things that are happening inside, because there's a lot of healing that happens from that.
mm,
Just being able to cry, being able to feel safe enough to just say, you know what, dude, or if it's a woman, like, I'm not okay. I need to talk about this.
mm,
So that's kind of a summary. So after that, I started toying around with the idea of, okay, cool. So I went through this, there was no help.
mm.
Why don't I become the help that I needed when I didn't have it? So a few years later,
And why is God keeping me twice?
you know what I'm saying? Thank you.
Why
Thank
is
you.
God keeping
So,
like you attempted it twice where
so
there was no one next to you, literally
surely,
no
yeah.
one
So,
next to you to say, I will tell you, I've once attempted it at a young
wow,
age when
wow.
I was I think form three, right?
Well, I'm
I was
glad you didn't die, my friend.
and you if you want to know the reason, please don't laugh. When I think
I'm not
about
gonna
it,
lie.
I laugh at myself, you know?
I'm
And
not gonna lie.
when oh gosh, it's because I didn't want to be a border anymore.
But I want to pause you there and say this: that you asked me not to laugh because you perceived your issue to be trivial.
Yeah.
Now, because you are using today's wisdom to judge
Yeah.
yesterday's decisions, right?
Patience.
Now, I want to pause you there and say something critical because this is so key when you're dealing with the issue of suicide, especially
Mm,
amongst men, right?
mm,
Like, no one should ever, ever minimize your experience, and no one should ever trivialize what you're going through because
yeah.
it looks real to you.
To
And if
you.
it looks real to you, it's every reason for everybody to stop what they're doing and get
Mm,
your help. You
mm,
cannot not judge, but you cannot uh, take someone's experience and
mm.
compare it to yours. And because if you were in the same situation, you probably would have made a different
A
decision.
better
But
decision.
it
Yeah.
wasn't your decision to make, it was them that went through it. And it
Mm,
looked real to them in the moment. And this is the thing about human beings,
mm,
we operate by what looks real to us in the moment.
mm.
If it looks real to me now, if I think that my boyfriend is cheating, it's real to me. If I
That's
think that my wife is cheating, it's real to me.
mm,
So validate my experience.
mm,
Don't minimize it, because that's the thing that drives people to loneliness, because they feel judged.
mm.
And if they feel judged, they're not going to open up, and the more lonely they get, because suicide is really people getting to a very lonely corner where they don't see any kind of intervention, and they look at death as the only way out,
Solution.
and that's how they do it eventually.
Wow, that's powerful, and that is so true. And I'd never thought of it that way. Because like now you're saying, to me, I find it to be now in my situation a
Yes.
laughable situation in the sense that I now know better, like you said, right?
Yes.
And I look at what I've accomplished right now. I'm like, I've accomplished a lot. Would I have had I
Yeah.
taken that path,
You
right?
wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have. And right
Yeah.
now, I am so grateful, regardless of what I go through. I get to
Yeah.
a point where that's not an option. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
because I've been there, and I am very vocal and expressive about a lot of things. And I've
Yeah.
noticed for me to even start this movement is because I've seen a lot of my brothers
Yeah.
out there who are
Yeah.
struggling.
Yeah.
And the one thing I like about your issue is speaking of divorce, which we shall get into that on how it really affected you. Because keep in mind, we have this whole perception of, oh, women are the one that get hurt, but
No,
it's
no, no,
because men don't talk.
no,
That's the
no,
difference.
no,
Because
no.
men don't talk. That
Yeah.
is where
Yeah.
we miss
The
it,
difference is,
right? That's
I
where we miss it. Yeah.
so just having women have permission. My daughter did a lovely video a few days ago, and she said something profound, which I thought, my gosh, I don't even know where she gets all this wisdom. And she's 17. She said that she did a video for the campaign that we're doing
Yeah.
for,
Yeah. I
for
saw
for
that video. Yeah.
for men's mental health, and she said society has given permission to women
To women.
to deal with their issues.
Hmm.
Now think about that. Like, how does society give permission to
Yeah.
women to deal with their issues? I mean, from a young age, like I raise a girl, right?
Mm.
And she's very much in touch with her emotions, and she cries a lot. And
And
I
we
had to
do.
learn, and I had to
We
learn,
do.
I had to learn that it's completely okay
Okay.
to because children deal with emotions as they come. They do not have the capacity to put to sweep anything under the carpet.
Mm.
They will feel everything, and they move on from things pretty fast. If you've
Mm.
noticed, right?
Mm.
Like, they will cry, they will laugh, they will get excited, and their experiences are constantly changing minute by minute because they allow themselves to feel, right?
Mm.
And for girls, they have the permission to do that because they will cry, when they feel hurt. They
Mm.
will laugh when they're happy, when they will scream when they're excited, and they kind of, nobody has an issue with that. But
Mm.
when it comes to the boy child, what happens is we want to box we sort of want to manage their masculinity, their
Mm.
emotions. So we say things like, eh, you you men don't cry. Like, why are
Yeah.
you crying?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
stop crying. Yeah. I remember
You
getting
need to
beat up
man up.
for
You need
crying.
to man up. Yeah.
I used to get beat up for crying. Imagine this. How terrible is that? I
Yeah.
used to get beat up for crying.
Mm.
I remember lots of times I would go out to play, and then you'd get beat up, and then you cry, and then your dad beats you up to go beat them up,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
because that's what men do. You
That's
understand?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what. So from a very young age, I already had a template. I already had a mold for what a man is supposed to look like. So first of all, a man, never just lets anything slide. Like, if another man disrespects you,
Mm.
you hit back, right? So also, you don't cry, you deal with issues,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Which is a dangerous thing to do because human beings are all meant to cry. I mean, think about it. Like, if men were not meant to cry, why the capacity to cry when we
Mm.
don't cry? You
Mm.
understand? So, uh, I want you to imagine a typical Zimbabwean funeral, right? So this is the typical setup at a Zimbabwean funeral.
Mm.
You have your women in the one side, doing all the wailing and crying and doing all kinds of theatrics, right? You know the story.
I
And then on the other side, you have men who are sitting around the fire, almost as if they are completely detached from
yeah,
everything happening here. It's almost like they don't. These people don't feel anything.
yeah.
They're just sitting there. They're talking about Manchester United and yesterday's match and
And
all
then
the things,
drinking on top
politics.
of
And
it, masking it with alcohol.
thank you.
Mm.
So it's almost as if they are not even part and parcel of this event. They
Event.
they 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 they're not grieving. No one is crying. Like, occasionally you hear. somebody who is coming to the funeral for the first time crying, and it's a woman.
Mm.
The only time that you kind of see a man cry is, probably towards burial or body viewing or whatever. But this is like the very extreme cases. But generally, we don't cry.
Yeah.
You understand? And this is just to show you how deeply the domestication, the conditioning is,
Mm.
that we really do not have permission to deal with stuff.
Mm.
It's a very weird thing for me to call up Nico and say, uh, dude, I need to have a good cry. My wife or my girlfriend just cheated on me, or I
Mm.
just lost my job,
Mm.
or I feel whatever it is that I'm feeling. It's a very weird conversation to have because he probably will find it weird. I
Mm.
will find it weird. And in the end, I would just man up and just keep it going. And here's the thing about emotions: emotions are living things, and you cannot bury them alive. It's
Mm.
only a matter of time before a living emotion that was buried alive will come back to bite you. And this is how emotions come back to bite you, right?
Mm. Mm.
You then start to look for comfort in alcohol or
Mm.
drugs or
Mm.
sex
Mm.
or whatever it is that I'm using to sort of like
Must,
suppress
like,
this
yeah.
this this thing that I'm feeling, right? So
Mm. Mm.
I'm trying to deal with the problem by creating another problem, which is an
Mm.
addiction. You
Mm.
understand?
Mm.
So this is an example. Or I will become super angry. I will start having, outbursts. And this is how men become violent and they become controlling and they become.
Pause. You pause right there. That is exactly the reason why I started this show. It's
Wow.
because I have also, I don't know how God has given me the strength to do it, but I have met, and I don't know why, I have met these people in my life who have things that were put on me in that way. You understand? You know, when you get to a point where you're being told, no, just let it go. But you're at
Yeah.
a point where you're like, I am praying for my partner because
Mm,
it's not us. I
mm,
because you know how when you get to know each other and all that, when you're starting to get to know each other, you learn your backgrounds and stuff like
yeah.
that, and you can tell this childhood trauma. And then
Yeah.
again, like you're saying, now you see this build up anger. I can't come and talk to you
Yeah.
because you're wearing a defensive shield already as a
Yeah.
man. Why
Yeah.
do you want to approach me? Because you've never been able to talk about it
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
these years. So I have met a couple of men who had childhood trauma, who
Mm,
had another one had a past trauma,
mm,
and also it was in my family. So I was like,
mm,
God, this is not a coincidence.
yeah.
This is, and me as a woman, how do I feel like I need to, talk about this? Because
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be angry. I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
hurt. I'm supposed to be crying. So why
Yeah.
should I represent? You
Yeah.
understand? And
Yeah.
when you see some of these things, it's built up anger, it's childhood trauma that
Yeah.
they've suppressed for a very long time. And then
Yeah.
we hold on to it rather than addressing it,
Yeah.
and you get to a point where you're like, okay, if they're not willing to see it for themselves, because sometimes it's not our position to change people
Yeah.
until somebody, like you said, you went on to read, you went
Yeah.
on to look for material stuff, you went
Yeah.
on to say why is because self-assessment is important too. Do you understand?
True.
Self-assessment is the one thing that people do not do when they're like, how come I am attracting? I've always had this whole, why am I attracting these people? I
Yeah.
ask myself every time,
Yeah.
why is
Yeah.
it Bondera with this why is
Yeah.
that Bondera in this relation? You understand? Because now I need to figure what am I doing wrong first
Mm,
before I'm like, no, but then again,
yeah.
don't think it's just you. You
Yeah.
understand? Because as
Yeah.
women, we always say, why me? What did I
Yeah.
do? What did I
Yeah.
do? But then I got this wake up call to say, you know what? Men are hurting too.
Yeah.
Men are hurting to the point that now the suicide rate is high.
It's
Now,
high.
now
Yes.
that's evident.
Yep. So how it usually works is,
Mhm,
you went through trauma, right? And
mhm,
then you kind of were attracting traumatized men in your
mhm,
life
mhm,
because we we crave for what's familiar. You understand?
That's it.
I read a powerful quote once, and it said, "No one will ever abuse you more than you've abused yourself."
That's it. Yeah.
So we first of all abuse ourselves in the
Yeah.
way that we think. If we're not doing it physically, we're doing it mentally. Every
Yeah.
day we are rehearsing or replaying or reliving some past
Mhm.
trauma, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and it gets to a point where you actually don't even need to think about the trauma.
Yeah.
Like you feel stressed up and anxious
Mm.
because of it, and
Mm.
it happens subconsciously,
Mm.
and you attract the same,
Mhm.
and this explains why probably you've tried to counsel one of your girls or many of your girls who were in abusive relationships, and you've told them to leave. I mean, that's the logical thing to do, right? Just leave.
Mhm.
But is it really ever that easy? No,
Nope.
because they're always going to gravitate towards the familiar.
The familiar.
The familiar is so familiar doesn't even have to be good. It can
Mm.
be toxic familiar. I know this because I have gotten back together with people that were super abusive. Not
Mm.
because I loved them because they're so good to me, but because I know that this was what was familiar to me.
Mm.
I couldn't handle a good woman. I
Mm.
couldn't handle a good relationship. And I always found ways to sabotage everything
Yeah.
back to what was familiar.
Yeah.
And this is something that happens so subconsciously to a lot of people that you don't ever wake up to it. I dated a girl once when I started my healing process who had been through three past relationships where she was physically abused, right? Like
Mm.
she was beaten up and all these things happened to her, right? And then we dated for 3 months. And after 3 months, she just ghosted me. She just disappeared from the scene. Only to send me an email a month later and say it to me. And I want you to listen carefully to this. She
Mhm.
said to me, I couldn't handle you.
Mhm.
I did not know how to handle you. So I couldn't stay. And I'm sorry that I hurt you, but I really couldn't. And because this is all I know. Like all I know is pain. And she actually articulated it very well. And she said, all I know is pain. All I know is people beating up. So sometimes I would actually l- see that she was trying to look for situations
Mm.
where I could possibly do the thing that she was used to. But
Mhm.
because I'm generally a gentle person,
Mm.
like I've never raised my hand against a woman ever.
Mm.
I've never been verbally abusive to a
Mm.
person. Um, so all of that was strange to her, and
Mm.
she couldn't take it, and she left, and that was it. And it doesn't make logical sense to a normal person because how can someone leave because you didn't abuse them? But it makes
But it
perfect sense.
wasn't the case. I will tell you for a fact because I've been there. And I've always even said to this person,
Mm,
up until now, they're the best person that I've dated. And it's a big, and like you're saying, I am seeing it now. Like you said, subconsciously, you don't know that you're doing it. To
yeah,
the point that if I think of anything negative, honestly, I would be mean to say that.
yeah,
He was too good to the point that I was like, you're too good for me. I can't.
yeah,
Because I was coming from a physically abusive relationship. That's what I knew. You
yeah.
understand? Came and changed me, got me back to God, told me I love you every day from day one up to the end. I
Wow.
wasn't used to it. Every
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
a black person, Zimbabwean
yeah,
person, literally. And to
yeah,
me, I was like, why are you saying that? It's too much. It's like, you don't need
yeah,
to tell me every day. I'm telling you how
yeah,
I am, right?
yeah.
And it took almost 3 years, but to me, it was fear of that goodness.
It
Right?
messes up your system. Yeah, it messes up your system because what's familiar is the toxic stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Mhm.
um, I want to say some key things because
Mhm.
I don't know how much more time we
Yep.
have.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I feel like I have to say this for people that are probably going through the same experience where you're a man and you are in this situation where you feel overwhelmed by life.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know there's a lot of people going through financial challenges, a lot
Mhm.
of people that are going through relationship issues, that
Mhm.
are going through interpersonal relationships and
Identity crisis too.
identity crisis.
Yeah.
You have the means, the money to do it, but you're just not happy, and you're
Mhm.
just in this dark hole,
Mhm.
and you are seriously contemplating ending it all because you want an end to the pain. And I want you to understand that there's a logical explanation for all of this. The logical explanation is that every human being, we are driven by feelings, right? Human beings are driven by feelings. All our decisions, everything we do, let me tell you, morning until night, are driven by what we want to feel more of and what we want to feel less of. So all of our decisions throughout the whole day, we are looking for things that feel good and we want to feel less of the stuff that doesn't feel good to us. So emotions run us, right? And what I want you to understand is in the moment when you feel like, and note, I use the word feel like, when you feel like this is the end, it's what looks real to you in the moment. And it's not necessarily the truth. It's not reality. It's the mind is an image painting machine. We are always painting images morning until night. Even when we're sleeping, when we dream, we're dreaming pictures, right? And we see pictures, and we see pictures of different things. We see pictures of beautiful things, but mostly we see pictures of things that we do not want, right? And these pictures are so convincing and they look so real to us, right? But they are only happening in our heads. Right under the helmet is where it's all happening, and it's not out there in reality. You understand? So there's got to be a separation between what you think and feel and what reality is. Reality is what's out there, and what's out there is that anything is possible. The future can be anything you want it to be. You understand? That has not changed. But what you're experiencing in the moment are the pictures that you choose to put your faith in. If I'm having an image of a gloomy picture, it's what my mind is painting and not the truth, right? So it's a virtual reality that I'm experiencing and it's not the truth. So you have to consistently remind yourself that whatever it is that goes on in this machine called the mind is a virtual reality. It's something that you paint. And the beautiful thing about it is that God has given us the ability to, the mind is like clay. Let me use the clay analogy. Clay is something that God gives us. And then he says, okay, Tony, here's your clay. Here is your clay. Joe, here's your clay. Clara, here's your clay. What we make out of this clay is entirely up to us,
That's
right? What looks real to us is entirely up to us. I mean, it's the same mind that we use when we go to the movies and see something that was created by someone else in the form of a movie, and we get emotional, and for a moment, an hour or two, we buy into it. But then as soon as we walk out of the movie, we leave it there. No one gets home depressed because their favorite hero died,
it.
because we
Yeah,
understand this was a movie, it was a
yeah,
virtual reality, it's a
yeah,
production.
yeah.
And all the images that we see morning until night are a production of the mind.
That's
And
it.
there's absolutely no need to put your faith into it, especially if it's on the toxic side, because it's the toxic stuff that hurts us. Nobody struggles with, imagining good things. We
Mm,
struggle when we imagine toxic stuff,
mm,
right?
mm,
So understand this is what the mind does.
mm,
All minds do this. We
mm,
are painting pictures morning until night, 24 hours a day.
mm,
And the moment you put your faith in a toxic image,
mm,
which the mind is projecting, that's what creates the experience of overwhelm, of getting overwhelmed, of the doom and gloom of what. Think about it. When you're depressed, you are believing a consistent dark picture that your mind is projecting.
that's it. And what you imagine comes to reality.
Comes to reality.
Yes.
When you are anxious, you are imagining a toxic future you do not want to happen, but it's a
Mm,
picture. Nevertheless, it's not happening in the now.
mm,
It's happening in your head, and you
mm,
put your faith in it. And because all these thoughts come with powerful emotions,
mm,
the emotions validate the image, and then it feels true.
mm,
Now the emotion is adding validity to something you are imagining. Like
mm,
imagine somebody cheating on you,
mm,
and you actually go through the motion of being cheated on, and meanwhile you have absolutely no power to know that someone is cheating on you for sure before you see them cheating, right? But it's like we get cheated on so many times before we actually get cheated on, or
mm,
before we even get the evidence of being cheated on. But
mm,
everything was happening in the head.
mm,
So when I was suicidal,
mm,
what was happening was that I was in my head, and I'll keep saying in my head because that's the only place where it was.
mm,
In my head, the future was bleak. I was worthless. I was never going to find somebody else to love. It was over. I might as well just check out. Do you understand? But all of these were images that the mind was projecting, and I was believing these images. And the more I replayed them, the more I believed them. They say the only true source of all human suffering are thoughts that are believed. The only true source of all, not some, all human suffering comes from thoughts that are believed.
mm. So, question though, when you mentioned, I meant to ask this in the like in the beginning, when you
Yeah.
mentioned that you when you went to talk to your pastor and then decided, you know what, I'm going to work on myself and whatever. And what did you describe that as? Keep in mind, mental health wasn't huge in our country, in Africa, to say as a
Yes.
whole, right? So,
Mm.
how did you look at that to say, I need to listen to what kind of podcasts?
Mm.
What am I supposed to read, regardless of how I'm feeling? Because
Yeah.
keep in mind, let's be specific in our home country, Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
where mental health is associated,
Mm.
you see what I mean? So at
I,
what
I
point
I
did
get
you
you.
think, Poti, it's just an imagination in my head that I need to tap out of?
Yeah.
It's just messed up. Yeah. And how did
So,
you describe it as mental health rather
so
than
for,
thinking?
okay, I didn't quite view it as mental health first and
Okay.
foremost.
Mhm.
I only started to understand the word mental health much later in the
Mhm.
in
Absolutely. Yeah.
but what drove me to do what I was doing, which
Mhm.
was to remember I mentioned something very critical. I said human beings are always looking for peace. We
Mhm.
are always looking for peace. We are wired for it. Every
Mhm.
single human being on the planet is always looking for some good feeling. We are
Mhm.
always looking for something that feels good. We are
Mhm.
always looking for peace and a
Mhm.
place of calm. And there's nothing wrong with this. That's it. It says
Absolutely.
we are created in the image of a loving God because God is loving, His peace, His joy. If you believe in the Bible throughout describes God as a God of peace. Why?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because we are His creation. Peace is our default.
Mhm.
If pain, what mental health is, mental health issues are alarm bells, which
Mhm.
are calling us back to the peace that we
We're
instinctively know.
lacking at that moment.
So anxiety is an alarm bell that is telling you that. So in a sense, I would put it as this: it was God telling me that I was on the wrong path. So the mental health issues that I was going through, the anxiety, the extreme depression, all of that stuff, these were alarm bells. Because when the Holy Spirit talks to you, and if you don't listen, uh, the voice will get louder until you pay attention to it. So depression is actually an alarm bell calling you back to the default, which is peace, right?
Mhm.
So I was being guided back onto the default.
Mhm.
So I know it sounds a bit philosophical, but to put it simply, I I knew this wasn't it. I
Mhm.
knew that the depression that I was going through, the anxiety, the bitterness, the anger, all of these things were not it.
Mhm.
So listening to the podcasts was me trying to find my way back home. And I eventually found my way back home. And this is true for every human being. Like, even if you lived on an island and there was no book, there was no pastor, there was no preacher, God would guide you back to that peace.
You know what's funny? Every time I'm at a point, I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's
Yeah.
funny that you say something so profound. Every time I feel like giving up on something, I feel like, oh, God is not listening. I
Yeah.
feel like on a negative path, if I should put it that way. I will tell you, he's always sent at least
Mm.
one person to remind me
Yeah.
to say, no, you do realize. And
Yeah.
it encourages me back. When I'm at a point where I'm like, today I'm turning off social media, today I'm doing this, today I'm doing that, today I am so me, today I am not listening to anything, I shut
Yeah,
down. Guess what? So many
yeah,
messages coming. Oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm praying for you. I'm praying for. I'm like,
yeah,
how did you know that
yeah,
now you think, and that's the one thing I noticed about what God does in my life.
yeah,
Every time I feel like saying, okay, I'm checking out, somebody just comes.
yeah. So God is always calling us back home,
Yeah.
and and your depression. In fact, not even let me not even say your depression. The
Yeah.
depression, the
Yeah.
anxiety, the stress, all of those. Look at those like uh, dashboard warning
Mm,
lights that are alerting you to something that you have strayed away from the default.
mm,
If you throw a stone up, it comes down, but it comes down to what? To the ground, right? So the ground is peace, the ground is love, is joy. So when we stray, the anxiety will call us back home. When we stray, the depression will call us back home.
mm,
When we stray, the stress will call us back home.
mm,
So the stress, the discomfort is God tapping your shoulder and saying, sister,
mm,
because we're always gravitating towards what is the default, which is peace, which is love. You will never hear anyone having a bad day because they are feeling too much love or they're feeling too much.
I know, right?
Never, never. But anything on the toxic side, it will
Yeah,
cause all kinds of problems. You will never come across a person who'll be like, I'm so stressed out. There's just
because
too
I'm
much
too
love in my life.
happy.
I'm too happy. No such. And do you know want to know why? Because that is the default. That's what feels natural to us. I mean, think
Yeah,
about it. Think about it like, look at it like this. If you ever come, and this was so profound, it completely changed my life because I had all kinds of addictions. I the addiction, this is going to sound so weird, but it's so true, and it's true for every other human being. The
okay.
addiction was my attempt to get back home, but going about it the wrong way. Even the
Mm,
suicide attempt was my what was my attempt to get back home to peace. Because when you're taking alcohol, what are you looking for? You're looking for
yeah,
temporary
just
peace.
yeah,
When
yeah.
you're watching porn, what are you looking for? You're looking for temporary peace. When you're engaging in sex, what are you
Mm,
looking for? You're looking for
mm,
temporary peace. So you're
mm,
looking for peace, but going about it the wrong way.
mm.
And then God is tapping on your shoulder and saying, okay, that is not, what you're looking for is correct, but you're going about it the wrong way.
Wrong
So
way.
just the fact that you want to take your own life, it means you want peace, you want a calm mind, you want a good feeling, but you're looking for it in the wrong way. You can still get to the peace, but without dying, right?
Mm,
So let me pull you back home. Let me get you back to ground, to what grounds you.
mm,
The stone being
mm.
thrown up. Sorry, Asia English. The stone being
Another language, though, I get you.
the stone the stone being thrown up is us leaving the ground, which is peace.
Mm.
But it always comes down to
Oh yeah.
what grounds us, which is the peace. So
Mm,
if you see a person who's struggling with porn addiction, with alcohol addiction, with whatever vice that you are in,
mm,
right? It's you knowing intuitively that peace and a good feeling is where I belong, but you just don't know how to get back to it. So you're using something external,
mm.
which is a wrong approach. Anything external will give you something temporary, whether it's
Oh,
money,
absolutely,
whether it's
absolutely.
success, whether it's love, whether it's a relationship. It's a temporary high, but it's not the real deal. But the thing that we ought to all realize is that we are not looking for peace.
Mm,
Peace is already in us. You are not looking for it outside. It's already, you just need to get back to it. So we get back to peace as opposed to acquiring peace from elsewhere.
mm.
And that is it's an innocent misunderstanding because we haven't been taught this. So we only do what we know. So in a sense,
Yeah,
we we are attempting to love ourselves by
yeah,
taking alcohol
yeah.
because you're trying to get back to. So alcohol addiction is evidence of self-love. It's proof that you are trying to self love yourself,
Mm, mm,
which confirms that you are born of a loving God, right?
Loving,
But
yep,
you're just going about it the wrong way.
the wrong way. Which brings me to before we conclude today's episode, which brings me to our organization, your
Uh-huh.
organization, so to
Yes.
speak, seeing that you are the founder and the director of Global Institute of Emotional Health and Wellness.
Uh-huh.
How did that come about to start? And how do we tap into having people come and talk to you about it, because that's the purpose that you created this, right? Because
Yeah.
we want everybody to be able to find support. And I am
Yeah.
so glad that your life story has led you to creating such a wonderful organization.
Thank you. I think I've already shared part of the story. It was because I'd gone through the suicidal experience, and
Yeah,
I needed to become the help that I needed when I didn't have it, right?
yeah,
So 2015, I had a coach. I had a life coach, and she was coaching me through life because I was so eager, to enjoy life, to get back to. Nobody told me this, but I just knew that there was more to the experience that I had gone through, right?
mm,
So she said to me, "Why don't you set up something that will help, like other people, like create a platform?" So I didn't know what that was going to look like, whether it was going to be a company or an NGO or whatever, right? So
mm,
all I know is from around 2015, that's when I started toying around with the idea. So I called it the Global Institute of Emotional Health and Wellness. Global because she actually coached me to come up with that kind of name. So global because I never saw it as a Zimbabwean solution. I never saw it as an African solution. I saw it as a global solution
mm,
because people generally need to have a place to um, go to when they need it. And more especially now after COVID, where
mm.
we then discovered that, what, we can use technology in a powerful way to reach people. We then did an app called Nani, Nani being a Shona word for better.
Yeah,
So Nani Wellness is the name of the online counseling service that we have. So it gives people access to mental health care without having to actually leave their homes. You
yeah,
can download an app, and through the app, you can talk to a counselor, you can talk to a therapist. All you have to do is just download, log in. You don't even have to use your real name. You can use whatever name you want to go by, right? And then you can either call them or text them or send a voice note, all within the app. But this is just the first of many solutions that we have come up with that are going to be beneficial, first and foremost, to Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe and in the diaspora, and then also to Africans. So there's a lot of expansion that is going to happen in the next year or two. We have also come up with a corporate mental health support service, where it's the same thing. We support companies. We help companies look after their employees. We help them uh, deal with mental health issues in the workplace without having to deal with HR issues and all of those things. So we're just a plug-in service that companies can take advantage of, and then we support people in the workplace using an app as well.
mm,
So we are big on the digital space where people already feel stigmatized when they go through mental health issues. So you don't want to make it worse by getting them to go and see a professional, like in the physical sense. You just have
right.
to download an app, and I don't have to go through the awkwardness of sitting with someone I don't know. And
Yeah,
so I know a lot of people prefer that, but there's also most people, as we have discovered, they prefer just hiding behind the screen
yeah,
and they talk about their issues,
yeah.
and the company gets the benefit of being a preferred employer because I would love to work for a company that supports my mental health.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
also it makes people more productive when they know they're supported, and it just creates a very friendly environment in the workplace where people know that it doesn't matter what happens, I can talk to someone and that person is just a text away, using an app, which has been beneficial for a lot of people. So it's a growing business. We want to get into other countries in the next year, and introduce the same, but yeah, that's pretty much how it's been.
You've already gotten into one country, and thank you so much for putting it out here in Canada. I really love it. I love it.
Of course, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite exciting because, funny enough, I was talking to somebody else we're getting in partnership with as well. So I told them about your organization because, like I said, we are looking to get solutions even after this season. And when I saw your organization, I was like, yes, God, thank you for answering the prayer because, of course, the fact that it's global says it all. Is
Yeah.
enough to say, you know what? You're coming to Canada, you've already tapped into Canada, and we are 155% backing you up. So we really love that, and we look forward to even partnering up with you guys. I was so excited when I saw your profile. I saw, the organization. I was like, God, yes. So this is the moment where usually when I end, I'm asking our men to say, how best can us women as nurturers support you men? No, not today. Today we're downloading Nani, guys. We're downloading Nani so we can get all you can just be anonymous if you're afraid, to be known, to be seen good. Oh my gosh, I am the one. It's Amanda. I do have
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, yeah.
Feel free to download Nani. So is it both on Android and Apple?
Yes, so we took it down a couple of weeks ago because we wanted to make some changes and make some integrations. But I'm imagining in about 2 weeks it should be
Okay.
available. It's on both platforms, Android and Play Store. So in about
Okay.
roughly about give and take 2 weeks, it should be up and ready again. We just made these were upgrades that were necessary, like adding the voice call in function and just making it faster. So in about 2 weeks, yes, you can definitely go out there and you can download it.
Okay, so by the time this episode gets streamed, definitely it'll be out. So we're going to be putting all the details down below so people can download it right away as we watch this show. And thank you so much, Tony. It was really a pleasure and an honor sharing this platform with you today because honestly, had it not been for you, we wouldn't have this talk really. And we thank God for your life. We thank God that you're here today, and we thank God for your organization.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate the time that I've had, and I look forward to more conversations like these because we need them. We need to make it normal to just talk about these issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're pushing towards, just making it normal. I believe in prevention, and prevention comes through awareness, and awareness, is free. It doesn't cost us
Yeah,
anything. Yeah,
that's
so
it.
it costs a lot more to deal with issues than to prevent them. So I would rather we just talk about it, make it normal. If we talk about it enough, I would love to see a day when it becomes normal for me to call Nico and just say, Nico, I need to talk, and I come, you cry,
Yeah.
and he says, cool, dude, come have a good cry, and then you go home.
Exactly. And that day has already started, let's just say. It has already started. Not that it's coming, but it has already started. So thank you so much, Tony, and we look forward to more good talk and definitely collaborating with your organization. To the viewers, thank you so much for watching this episode today with the magnificent Tony Friday, who has been a radio host for the longest and now tapping into, these important conversations that we could not talk about back in the day. But now we've managed to get into technology on it. And here's the reason why you need to download this app so you can help. It may not be you, but you may know somebody who's going through a struggle who may not want to be able to show up to come to you and say, okay, but I can see there's something. Just download this app. Feel free to download Nani, guys. And remember to keep watching because there's more. We're going to be having more guests who are going to come here and share more. Talk about men's health, talk about their well being, not just mental health, because eventually it ties back to men's mental health. Let's support our men because they're also important. They're human just like we are. Yeah. All right. So keep watching. If you haven't subscribed to the Amanda Lusando Show, do subscribe on our YouTube channel as well as on Play Africa TV. If you haven't downloaded the app, please do go download the app at Play Africa TV and enjoy the Amanda Lusando Show. If you have any comments, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. We would love to hear from you how best we can, be strong in this conversation, because it's not just about the black man, but just every man out there, because every man is going through something. So remember, little girls with dreams become women of dreams. Till next time, take care and God bless.